is very important, and it's not just the sustainable aspects of it or the wonderful things that planting trees will do for the environment, but it's also leaving a legacy that will go on for many years after that tree is planted. And it reminds me of one of our residents, Tamiko Breland, who donated 20 trees to the city that were planted in honor of her birthday. So Friday is Arbor Day, and I hope that you would consider planting a tree on Arbor Day. It doesn't have to be to the same level as what Tamiko has done, and if you don't want to spend any money, but the city will give you a tree for free. Okay, our first presentation, it is my pleasure to introduce, in honor of National Poetry Month, our very own poet and author, Patrice Vecchione.
National Poetry Month has been a thing in the United States for quite a number of years now, and I love to be a part of it and to be a part of it here in my hometown. You know, there are a lot of people who live on the East Coast who think we don't get spring here, right? You know, they say, oh, you don't know anything about spring. They're just not paying attention. I mean, who could be outside right now and not see spring? So I'd like to read you from my book, The Knot Untied, 3 very short poems in celebration of spring. This is called The Astonishment of Spring. Though my life is in tatters and I am afraid, the young deer shakes the dew from her coat before slowly crossing the road, and in the field of blackbirds there's singing. And this is called Luck on the Tongue. Most days I have the world on my tongue, and I roll it back and forth, suck and swallow, squeeze honey from the hives, complete with bee wing and bee shit, and it all tastes sweet enough. Butterflies crawl lazily from their cocoons. Fireflies turn on their lamps at dusk. The women wear gorgeous dresses, and the men's shoes are polished by love. Most days. And the last one, this actually happened, well, sort of. You'll see which parts probably did and didn't happen. Standing outside a cafe on Alvarado. It's called Here, Not Elsewhere. Here, the promise of spring knocks at every door, blossoms its pink approval, casts all eyes skyward at the suddenness of bright, unfettered blue. Walking home this morning in front of the mobile telephone store next to Cafe Heaven, an empty pair of strappy sandals, posed curbside. And I understand it. Imagine leaving my sturdy brown shoes beside. The warm air unties my laces. Lift off. Thanks for inviting me, Scott.
Okay. Our next presentation is to honor our police chief and city manager for their support of our U.S. Armed Forces. You know, our country relies very heavily on our National Guard and Reserve forces, and they consist of people that are within our community that have regular jobs, and they're asked to support our country, and oftentimes it's at a moment's notice. And they need the support from their employers and their bosses to make sure that they facilitate their ability to join their units, and they have a smooth transition after they're done serving their country and they come back to do their regular job that they have normally done. Some of you might not know that we have a police officer Brian Perez, who is also a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marines. And he serves in that capacity. And one of the things that he wanted to do was to recognize his employer, so he nominated both the chief and the city manager for a well-deserved recognition. And Brian, I'd just like to offer you the opportunity, if you want to speak, before I present those awards to those two individuals.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. I appreciate that. Is this right here?
And, it doesn't sound like it's on.
I'll share my big boy voice. Hey, since I've been at Rey Oaks, I've been affiliated with the Marine Corps for almost going on 28 years now. And I've climbed the ranks. I'm pretty high up, which means sometimes I get a lot of asks that, hey, can you go to this conference? Can you go to Europe for 3 weeks? Can you go to the Middle East for 4 weeks? And, you know, presently I'm the only reservist with the Rey Oaks Police Department, but we're a small agency, and when I leave, it causes the chief and the city manager they've got to be very flexible, and I just want to say I really appreciate you folks being flexible with me, because it's just helped, it's helped the Marine Corps, it's helped me balance, and you've always been there for me as far as some of these last minute conferences that have come up. You've allowed me to take that time off at a moment's notice, and I just really appreciate it. And this is just a little thing that I can do to tell you that I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
What I have to do is have the chief and the city manager come up front so I can present the certificates. And Brian, if you want to take a few pictures, if you can, that would be great. Okay, let me read this first. It's from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, and it recognized both Chris Berkwin and John Gurdon from the city of Rey Oaks as a patriotic employer for contributing to the national security and protecting liberty and freedom by supporting employee participation in America's National Guard and Reserve Force. So this first one is for Chief. All right, you want to take a picture there, Brian? That'd be awesome. Okay, there you go. And
All right, get up here, Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. Oh, perfect. We'll get it this way.
all right, okay.
Thanks for really.
No. Wait, can I say something? Okay, just briefly.
Chris, you can start off first.
Thank you. I just want to say that, Brian has been with us for a while now. I look at it differently. I see him as representing Rey Oaks abroad rather than the other way around. So he makes us proud. He serves his country with distinction. And as long as he's interested in putting in the hours and time away from family, we're happy to help that happen. So thank you for yours.
Council would like to say anything? Bill, I can start with you.
Sure. Thank you for your service. It's great. Scott and I share a mutual friend that's very heavily, or was, he's retired now, very heavily in the National Guard Reserve, Major General Blanca. I've watched him go from basically a tanker all the way up to, like I said, Major General. And the agency that we work for supported him wholeheartedly. And it's good to know that Rey Oaks does the same thing. Came from a huge budget. This is a very small budget, and it does have impact, but we're happy to support it because you guys are out there doing the stuff that a lot of us won't do. Okay, how's that? Better? Worse? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
All right. That's John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very proud to Chief Chris and our city manager, John Burden, for your unwavering support and dedication to our National Guard. I've been also in the Department of Defense, and I have really seen how like the sacrifices that they provide to our nation in protecting our freedoms. So thank you so much for your leadership and for supporting like our very own Brian Perez. Yeah, thank you.
Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your service, Sergeant Perez, on so many levels, both to the city and to our nation, to remarkable rank. Thank you, City Manager and Police Chief Chris, for accommodating his needs of leave so that he can fulfill his service commitments also.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for your service. I appreciate the fact that you can balance that and this job and your family. I know that's a lot. And so thank you for being so giving with your time. And I really appreciate also City Manager Burton and Chris Bergwin for being flexible and giving that to you so that you can kind of go away guilt free. And you know, we're happy here. I mean, we are kind of, it's a win-win-win all the way around. So I appreciate the support that you're getting here, and I appreciate your work. And it was really nice of you to acknowledge them. So because this is new for me to understand how this works. So so thank you for this education. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you all for your comments. Would you like to say something? Well, Sarah, I look like you.
I just wanted to continue the love fest. And Brian, we do appreciate your service, and we appreciate your flexibility, and then what you bring back and share with your colleagues in the police department. What you learn in the military translates to what you do in the police department. But it's also the culture the council creates here, and that facilitates our job and helps us be able to provide that kind of service. So thank you, council. Thank you, man.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone from the council that would like to pull in? Okay, I'll take it out to the public. Or is there any item that the public would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion to approve. Okay, all right, all in favor? All right, consent agenda passes. Next item is old business, housing element update, and Denise, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again for the housing element update. I could get an email maybe with the invite. Okay. Might be able to log on.
Yeah.
But I actually have a short presentation today. I wanted to just identify a sort of a status report of the adopted housing elements. As you know, we have had a number of different meetings. The city council adopted the housing element of December 13th, 2023. We submitted to HCD, and HCD conducted a 60-day review. They adopted housing element. We received their comments on February 12th, and a meeting on the 20th February. And we have been working with HCD since that time, back and forth on different programs, etc. At the meeting last month on March 26th, the council reviewed a staff report, a presentation. We had received the HCD comment letter that was in the packet. We discussed process revisions and program revisions. Meeting also included a full public hearing allowing the public to opportunity to comment. The city council packet also included a list of revised programs for the HCD letter, which was attachment 1 of your, I got Karen not here. Don't have the copy skills, but for tonight, what we'd like to do is just identify that we've been in communication with HCD. We have a scheduled second full meeting for questions and address specific program revisions. In the meantime, we are including revisions to address the updates really focusing on all the chapters that we can, so making all the changes that we have to the chapters and other than chapter programs and which is chapter 7, and AFFH, which is the permissible further fair housing, which is a very comprehensive one, which we have to meet with HCD on. We are well on our way to making the revisions, and we're focused on program revisions now. So based upon the summary of programs from the HCD letter that we provided last week, I can go over a little bit of what we're focused on, and I have just a few questions, thoughts on revisions to the programs. And then basically what we're planning on doing is hunkering down and making the changes that we need to make without further ado, and preparing the track changes versions. We don't plan on any major planning commission or city council meetings until we actually work with HCD and get their acceptance on some of those programs. They have been willing to work on interim revision documentation with us, and so that's going to be really helpful, I think. That's our plan.
You should have an email now.
I can just open the email that would be good. I'll read it and can't. But my plan is, I think, to just go over some of the questions that I have on the revisions. I think that would be as comprehensive as we need to. So there are, I'd say about 5 or 6 different locations in the HCD letter that we all know about, where they've asked us to make some changes. The first one that I thought was important to note is they had identified that we need to clarify that we do or do not have a shortfall of sites under RENA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment. If we had a shortfall, we would have to have a rezoning occur within this next year by a certain deadline. So because the city council accomplished the rezoning in October 2023, we just will revise that program A1 to identify that. They also asked that we provide more information regarding the availability of adequate water supply to serve the long-term needs. And so we're focused on putting some specific timelines in there. And we had, and that's talked to them about that. They have, we have on the arena that we would be meeting RENA, but without the need for using ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And but we did say 20 units of buffer will be, we assume will be available between, or will be developed for housing between now and the end of the 6th cycle, which is 2031. We felt comfortable with doing that based upon the history of our ADU production in the city, and provided that information to HCD. They still would like to see that we that we would monitor the ADU production and affordability through the course of the planning period, and if we're not meeting target numbers anticipated in the housing element, implement additional actions. So we've added that to program A3 and put some additional actions in there, including we have these already, but it was just including reporting, identifying where we are, and at mid-level, 3 years of mid-level, we're not meeting targets. What else can we do? Identifying incentives of what we can do to ensure we meet those target areas. We'll also clarify in the housing element that these are buffer needed there to meet the RENA. They had asked, we had something on A4, or excuse me, A3 policy D4 programs to reduce homelessness. They wanted additional information about our adoption of that emergency shelter ordinance. We had already provided the emergency shelter ordinance, so it's just a clarification that yes, we meet the requirements, and updating the actual definition of it. So that's an amendment to a policy. And then there's a zoning requirement, or the one of the items that they mentioned is land use controls, specifically parking. We have a program in there, C3, mitigating constraints, about amending the zoning ordinance, doing a full review of the zoning ordinance and mitigating constraints. And this is very important for HCD in terms of how they see and review different housing elements and constraints to housing. So one of their concerns was parking was a constraint. They had amended the program to identify revising, reducing some parking information, which I acknowledge. And then they would also like us to commit to removing or replacing the conditional use requirement for in our zoning code, or if they're principally permitted uses for housing, because they see that as constraints. So that's something that we're gonna talk to them about and then bring back. Another constraint to housing that they saw was a requirement related to garages. So one of their comments was, they would like to see us consider analyzing the need for garages and multifamily housing. And that's something that we have as a program to analyze and consider the requirements and provide an amendment if the analysis shows that that would be helpful. So, we'll see if they'll accept that change. They had a discussion, item regarding, how many housing units should be rehabilitating. In meeting Rena, you show rehabilitation of, new housing units and how you're going to accomplish meeting with Rena. We had not had a need to put in rehab housing, but there were some comments at the council meeting, at a few meetings about, well, you know, we could do some rehab for housing. So we're putting in an objective about to rehab housing units, and he mentioned that there's a possibility to work together to do some rehab procedures and things like that. And so the other program additions or new programs, added a program, they identified us to look at farm worker housing as a program, even though it's a regional need. So we'll add that program, we're working on that. Add a program specifying the road and utility commitments, so there's a timeline for completion of infrastructure in our sites where we're meeting Rena, which are former corridor sites 1 and 1A. And then bring in the program, the mediation that we had from the EIR that was adopted about how are you going to be implementing safety improvements for use of former corridors in the areas where there's a residential covenant restriction, working with DTSE, Department of Toxic Substance Control. So those are added programs, and then one I'm working with the city manager on numerical objectives regarding compliance and timelines for the surplus land active development. Those are the major ones, as I identified before. We're well on our way to making some program adjustments, but it'll really be the back and forth with HCD level all the time. That's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Denise. I'll start with the council, Councilmember Ragsdale Bruin.
Yes, thanks Denise for keeping us updated. I appreciate that. It would be nice if we can get this stuff a little ahead of time coming in. I know this week's been a little weird for Karen, not sick and stuff, so. But it would be nice to get it a little bit before the meeting so we can digest it. And second, I remind the council and staff that once 6 cycle is complete, I'm on the ice cream this time. So ice cream bars, but just remember, there's the carrot. Thank you very much, though. Good presentation. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Denise, thank you for the updates. And I just have one question. What's gonna be the timeline or the next steps moving forward in our implementation of the updates? Just, I just wanna be aware of probably the date, if there are, there are dates that we have to really like look into, so that we will always be in compliance.
Up to the mayor, we can.
Yes.
So I mean, I think there's a two-part question in there, the dates for future compliance. I have a big chart that I'll bring in when we have our next meeting that talks about what are the dates for some of these implementations of the programs. And that's one of the items that city manager and I have already discussed. I presented him the chart and the timeline that shows so many things to do between now and 2031. At the end of the cycle. So of all these programs and the timelines there, which are part of the housing element, are in chapter 7 right now of your adopted housing element. We are going to be talking to HCD to change some of the timelines to elongate the process somewhat for the actions and programs that are already implemented in part of your adopted housing element and revised ones, so that there is more room, opportunity, and time for adoption of some of these revisions to the zoning ordinance, making sure you do complete them, but also, given the small size of the city and the budgetary constraints and just the staffing constraints, it would not be possible to do the timeline that you have right now, just in terms of implementation of these programs, researching and completion. So that's I think HCD will be aware of that once we discuss it with them. It's a planned meeting, and we will be coming back with that pretty large chart. You can take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
All right, Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again, Denise Duffy, for your diligent work in working on our behalf with the HCD. I just have two simple questions. You mentioned the farm housing aspect, farm worker housing aspect that they'd like to see. Would that provision count towards our arena numbers, as those are essentially seasonal and transient occupancy, or is there any gray area there? And the other question is, you mentioned the ADU to fulfill 20 units, and you said now until, is this an aggregate number, including the ADU units, accessory dwelling units that we currently have, which is 5 or 6 at this point?
Mayor, I'd be happy to answer those two questions. I'll do the ADU first and then the farm labor housing second. The ADU, the number, the 20 units that are projected that the city would have of ADU units between now 2023, 24 to the end of the cycle, 2031, is assumed based upon the number of units that have been completed over the last 5 or 6 years. So we're assuming perhaps 3 units a year, if you will, or somewhere along those. It's the units you can count toward your arena for ADUs would be those that would have been completed within the 6th cycle and then, or 5th cycle and brought over. So we have to actually go back to the chart, see if there are any of those, but it's not an aggregate of all the ADU units that the city already has in place. It's only those that may fit within the time frame that HCD allows that you would be able to count towards your fee. And one of the programs I mentioned is actually coming in annually with the annual report. You have your avenue building report summary. This would be an annual report that's done as part of your housing element annual report that shows here's the number of ADUs and they count toward very low, moderate income, et cetera. And here's the production that we've had this year. So that is what the programs mentioned. And then the second question is the farm labor housing. And the comment from HCD was essentially, you discussed that there's farm labor housing, but there's no farm labor, that there's no farming operation or agricultural operation within the, and we've already discussed that in the housing element. But they would like us to recognize that there are farm labor and then need for housing on a regional basis. And so it's really a discussion of that. It doesn't mean that there's going to be housing created for that particular unit area in Rey Oaks, but that it's showing the regional need and where other opportunities, where the resources are for farm labor housing and for farm worker housing in this area. It's not necessarily that they have to be built, but if any farm worker housing were built, typically it does count towards it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Duffy.
All right, Councilmember Sherwood.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. So, I hate to start off with a sour note, but I would desperately ask you to always provide us something ahead of time, so we have an opportunity to review. I know today we're just going over a list of programs, things that are new. It's just so much easier if we can digest it a little bit in advance.
I just want to clarify that the list that I went with the same list that you saw on March 26th, and the comments were comments from HCD. And I wasn't planning on providing any revisions to the programs until HCD reviewed them and giving you just a verbal operation. Here's what they're looking like.
Even if that's written out for us, like it would be helpful. And I think it's beneficial to the public so they can see what's happening. This is all of these things.
I need to provide that.
Yeah, sure, thank you. I know that that, Councilmember, we talked about timeline. I'm wondering, do we have a timeline for compliance? Like, you're going back and forth with HCD. At what point will they say you have a compliant? In other words, when are we gonna get ice cream?
So that's a very good question. Our timeline for compliance is not something that we can create. It's what HCD tell us. So if you look at all the other different jurisdictions, locally or in the state of California, some of them have been through years of the housing element to achieve compliance for the sixth cycle. If you recall, we started March 28th, 2023. We completed the compliant housing element for the fifth cycle and an EIR, and that included two different versions of HCD review and the EIR, and that was completed by the end of October 2023. We also started March 16th, 28th on the sixth cycle housing element. We completed 12 to 13 hearings during that period of time. We completed a local draft review that went out in May, 30-day review. We revised that local draft review. We completed a draft review that goes to HCD, and all the programs were developed in different meetings, etc. The HCD reviewed it, we got another review draft out, and the document was able to be completed, the fourth document and adopted in December. A number of these jurisdictions are still working on their HCD review draft or just haven't submitted. I've talked to a number of my cohorts, and they're still working on, getting HCD letter compliance. I think the way you described it last meeting was, it's great, we only have 6 pages. And we just have to keep thinking that way, so. I can't give you a defined date when HCD will try to be compliance. I can tell you that the next one we officially submit, we'll have another 60-day review. And then we'll either get a letter or of compliance, or we'll get another, hopefully 2 pages or whatever to review. Again.
So it's a back and forth with 60 days review of whatever we develop
Each time. And for AB 215, you have to also have some time period where there was a review before it goes officially to HCD. So there's a 7-day requirement on this different version. So we're on our second review draft, which is adopted.
Yeah.
And our second review letter. So we're getting there.
Yeah, no, it is good. And then one more question. You mentioned it going to the planning commission. I know that City Manager has mentioned it. Like it sounds like it's kind of, does it have to go to the planning commission and then come to the council?
I'm going to defer to city manager on that. We just had a discussion about whether it does need to go. I think before it goes to HCD officially, whether you adopt another version or whether it just goes as another review version, we should probably have joint meeting, I would suggest. But we just don't know when that is because we're still going through this with the very nice interim documentation review with HCD. And so I don't know that time. So that makes sense.
I would just ask that I like the idea of a joint meeting and I want to get the planning commission's eyes on it too. And the more people who are involved, the better. So I would like to see that.
All right, thank you. What I'd like to do now is send out to the public. If there are any questions you would like to ask of Denise, now would be your opportunity. Okay, seeing none. Denise, thank you once again. And we'll move on to our new business, which is one item, and that's consider approving the job description for administrative service technician. City manager.
Yeah, thank you. So this has been a long time in the making. We've been talking about this for the nearly 3 years that I've been here. And this has been a long plan that even started before me with bringing our finance and HR consultant, RGS on board, and helping us modernize our systems when it comes to administrative services. So that's IT, HR, and finance, and helping us develop policies, implement new systems. We implemented the BIM system with our finance system, all of those things take expertise and they take, training and they take time. And so, we're getting to the point where we're gonna reap those benefits, so, I appreciate the council's support on that and continuing that relationship with RGS. As, you know, you've seen every year, it's getting more and more expensive because we're leaning on them more and more to help get our ducks in a row, as it were, and get well, specifically our finances, building that foundation. So now we're at the point where we can start building the house on the foundation. And you see, we're reaping the benefits because you're getting better reports. Our finance committee meetings are more productive. We're talking about more detailed information and not getting bogged down in explaining everything because everybody's understanding that the reports are better written. They're producing more useful information that lay people can understand in a better way, especially with our budget. But also you're seeing it in our annual audits. We've had consecutive years now of no findings in our audits, which is boring accounting speak for we're doing an excellent job. And so we're getting there. But you see, you just approved a contract extension for RGS, and the numbers are big. The numbers bother me because they're getting big. They're based on our current consumption of their services. And so they represent what we would pay out and we continue going forward as is, and having them provide basically all of our financial services. And so that's not my plan. This position will help us start to bring those services back in. We have Elizabeth Mariano, who's been working really well with the staff on training. And so all of the training that we've been talking about over the last 2 years of staff in-house, I stay with Karen now because that's who we have right now. I'm happy to say that on Monday, we have our new permit, our deputy city clerk / permit tech starting, Laura Batra. She comes from Aptos, and she has worked for years with the city of San Jose and the planning department and building department, code enforcement. So she brings a lot of that background with her. So she'll be great at the front counter and helping people permitting, planning commission, will be staff of the planning commission. So I think we'll start to see a lot better improvement in just the professional base that we put forward to the community, but also our responsiveness to the community, which is hard to imagine because as somebody who's done land use for a number of years, when it comes to our permit counter and getting people through that process, we're already crazy ahead of everybody else. It's light speed for people getting through that process here, but it's even get better. And so this is the next step from to help with the finances and the HR. HR is a function that has never been a professional function in this organization. It's always been everybody cheating me, everybody makes it up as you go along, and we're leaning heavily on Alex. And that's not his forte. He's not an HR professional, he's a lawyer and a municipal lawyer. So there's some great people in who have HR experience, can help us with that, can help track payroll, can help track POBAR issues, place on the bill of rights issues with employment, help with scheduling Brian when he goes out on his military assignments and helping with that kind of stuff. But we want to bring accounts receivable, accounts payable, and payroll functions, the basics of what we do in finance back in-house. And now it's getting to the point where we're between $150,000 and $200,000 in our GS contract that paying for 3 people to help us with that. And now we'll have 3 people in-house and we can start to train everybody and actually have a solid team. But more importantly, have the capacity to start documenting in binders the work that gets done, because we're 1 deep in every position. So if somebody leaves and somebody goes out on a long leave or vacation, or they get another job, and then we're stuck, and then we have to wait for the next person to come in to get trained. But if we have a binder, people can pick that up and keep it going, and then we'll keep that. Because I need that. You need that. And the finance committee needs that. You guys all need that. That will basically function as our finance director level and help with the high level stuff, with policy formation, the budgeting, with the accounting, with the audit, and all that stuff. But then everything else will be done in-house. And we have the administrative assistant position, which is now vacant, so we'll be freezing that position. So for the rest of this fiscal year, bringing in this position, filling this position will be paid for out of that salary savings. And then going forward, it'll be paid out of the salary savings for that position. And then also the savings from RGS. So in the long run, we're gonna get better service. We're gonna get better for me because I have people in-house that I don't rely on, and I can get what I need quicker. But also better services to the community at a reduced price compared to what we're paying now. So we're building the framework on that. And so with that, my long-winded way of saying, please give me this position.
All right, thank you. So I'll start with Councilmember Ragsdale.
So just to make sure my brain is functioning at some level, which is debatable, we're filling the position that's already vacant, correct? Yes. And then we're asking to fill a second position? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I think it's a fantastic idea. The more we can do in-house, the better. I love working with Elizabeth on finance. She listens, I'm getting reports now that I can digest really easy. You can scan down and go, oh, whoa, or wow. You know, it's really easy, it's clear, it's concise. Before it was a little muddled. I'm hearing very few of the oops that got categorized wrong anymore. That used to be kind of the modus operandi. Now it's getting really concise and clear, which makes my job on the finance committee so much easier. Because I can go in and just look over everything and go, yeah, we're good, or what's this, what's that? So, I'm wholeheartedly in support of this.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Ruby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, it's a no-brainer, and I'm also looking forward for our city hall staff family to become bigger, because to me, that's really like progress, and then the more people that can help our community, the better. And I really like applaud you for thinking of this position, and I'm looking forward to it. And I just wondering, just a question, if we can have what other resources do we need in order to help this administrative service technician to be successful in his or her job? So that's my only question. So do we need other software that we need to purchase, or, yeah. Thank you.
But when they get here, that's all we'll be able to do.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just wonderful that this is coming to fruition. Thank you for the presentation, lining that up for us. I can tell you're very excited about the prospect of making the city staff more effective and efficient. Also quite such a benefit to councils, committees, and interdepartmental works, permit process and whatnot. It's great to get some help for the existing staff. Many hands make light work. It's just beautiful overall. It is looking at the job description. It'll create an aspect of full coverage. The pay scale, even at tier 4 or step 4 as it is still less than half of outsourcing. And so financially, it's just another prudent and effective, foresighted move forward for the city. So thank you for your work on this.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Schurer.
I agree with everything Councilmember Howard said. I mean, that was a great summary, and everyone else, this is a smart move. It's gonna save us money, we'll be more efficient. It supports everyone, so.
All right. Okay, I'll send it out to the public. Are there any public comments regarding this potential approval of a new position?
That's
Okay,
good.
seeing, no comments, but I'm seeing thumbs up. Yeah, it was expressed well by my fellow council members. I mean, it's definitely a tenuous situation when you have one person go down and a police chief and a city manager. Step in. I don't think I've ever seen that in any other city. But we're agile like that, but it's not, something we can sustain for the long haul, obviously. I would just like to say thank you to the city manager. I mean, this is a testament to your ability to get the financial processes under control, as was mentioned. Identify efficiencies. I mean, looking at the contract that we have and be able to look at filling that in-house and finding the efficiencies in there, just awesome. And, you know, finding ways to better serve the community, because that's what we're all about. So thank you for all the hard work that you've done to get us to this point. So with that, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve this new job description of an administrative services technician, and then the FY 23-24 budget to include this new position.
Okay,
I second.
all right, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it is approved. Congratulations. Okay, I'll move on to the next item, which is staff reports, city manager.
Yeah, just real quick, so, we're moving forward with our development of the former four-door property. Well, at least we're moving forward with the process, whether or not we get to development remains to be seen, but we're moving forward with the process where we can start talking about development and what that means. So, for all those listening, for those of you who are here on May 16th, we'll be having, we haven't decided what to call it, open house, town hall, workshop. But it'll be on May 16th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. And we're gonna do it at the Moose Lodge because we're hoping that a lot of people from the community will come and this room won't accommodate that. It's also why, you know, partially why building this new foundation, getting the staff and, you know, we've got to start building for that future. We have this out in front of us that we're working towards. So hopefully everybody comes. This is going to be important for the city. This opportunity out on the former corridor is, I mean, this is the legacy for you all. This potentially, this is the next big thing for the city. So we need as much input on what that looks like for the city as possible. So tell everybody at the Oaks to come. Put it on you, Alan. Yeah, and then, Chief, we have a road closure on Friday, is that right?
We do. Rosita's gonna be closed between Angeles and Paloma. PG is digging some holes and checking some stuff for us before we start our road project, which hopefully will be sooner than later. So rather than having someone maybe get run over, we decided there's so many ways in and out of the canyon that don't need that road. We'll close it down, they can be a little faster and get out of there.
And then just appreciate everybody and the community's patience while we've been closed for a couple of days, because that's where we're at right now with only one person who knows what the heck was on at City Hall. Because when she's out, Chris and I are dead in the water. But I can't tell you how incredibly understanding and patient the community is. They show up, we talk to them at the front door, tell them, I wish I could help them, but I can't. And they say, yeah, great, no, I don't, I want some care initiatives. So. Thank you.
All right, council reports are in the packet as well as correspondence. The next item is a closed session item. There are two of them. The first is a liability claim against the city by a Miss Norma Gamez. And then the second item is anticipated litigation, which consists of one case. And it's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. But before we adjourn to closed session, I want to open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to address the city council on those items for closed session may do so now, and you'll have a 3-minute time limit. Public comment is open. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment and we will adjourn to closed session.
See ya.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, we'll bring the meeting back into session. I'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to item 11B1, the claim was denied by the council. With respect to 11B2, council was given an update. Direction was provided to staff, but no reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you. Our Our next meeting will be May 21st, at 6 o'clock, and this meeting stands adjourned.
Hey, everybody, I just want